So welcome, everyone, to this opportunity for practice together. And I'd like to begin by, we can start with half an hour of meditation practice. So if you'd like to get comfortable and come back to the simple practice, closing the eyes and just finding a good posture, upright posture, coming back to the body, coming back to the breath. Letting all other cares and concerns go. Sometimes this is easy. We are ready just to stop and sit and be aware of the simple bodily feelings and the breath. Sometimes we find it difficult to stop, sit down and meditate, because the mind can be very active with cares and concerns. And we can notice that. But it's so helpful for us to have a break from time to time. And so just allowing ourselves to come back to the simple, come back to what's real right now. Come back to the breath, come back to the body. And start to enjoy the simplicity and also the completeness of this moment, of this experience right now. It's really good to keep it simple, uncomplicated, focusing on what can be felt right now, what can be known as we sit together. We're sitting together, but we're also on our separate journeys. And it's this body. This is the temple for this one. This is our sphere. This is our world. Everything we need to know is right here. So coming back to this body, really directing full attention on what can be felt right now. Maybe the sitting posture makes itself known. The touch of the mat, the cushion, the chair. The temperature in the room. The state of the body, whether there's any tension anywhere, any holding, any stiffness or soreness, any pain. We can direct our attention to the body and kind of move it around the body and feel out the different areas. The head, the shoulders, down the arms, both, chest, the belly, the lower parts of the body, thighs, knees, right down to the feet. We can scan and we can just investigate. How is it? How does it feel? What's happening right now? Helping ourselves to really come home to this body. What can be known? We don't need any props. We don't need any supports for this. Nothing external is required. This is somehow rather marvelous. Just sitting. Mind, body. And the breath. Our great friend and ally. This rhythm, this process that keeps us alive, that is quite reliable as long as we live. Feeling it, not trying to influence it, not trying to change it in any way, just being with it, allowing it to take you along in a way, the rhythm of it, part of nature. And it's a wonderful object of meditation for us because it changes constantly, it's moving, it's filling the body, the inhalations, filling the body, energizing the body. We can notice this prana, this sense of energy coming in. Not the science of it, but the felt sense of it. How does it feel? Breathing in. And breathing out, the letting go quality. Releasing, relaxing, deflating. Noticing how that feels and where we feel it in the body. And so in these ways we can just really help ourselves to focus all our attention on simple presence, embodiment right now. And the body can relax, begin to relax slowly and steadily, easing, releasing. And so the mind also can steadily, slowly begin to relax. We don't need to attend to the mind. It will quite naturally follow on as we meditate, kind of unraveling, calming, clarifying. It takes care of itself if we sort of leave it alone. So let's focus in. We can have another glorious 20 minutes of complete silence now, sitting and breathing, being here, coming back to simplicity, to the real, giving it our full attention to this moment, this experience. So I'll ring the gong in about 20 minutes to end our meditation session. 20 full minutes of presence, of peace. See how much we can attend to the body and breath. And if the mind goes away off into realms of thought, see how quickly we can notice and gently come back home. So welcome again, everybody. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share some words on Dharma with big gratitude and big respect to Bhante Sudaso and to Ayya for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to start by paying respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. So I'd like to speak today, say a few words about the Buddha's teachings on what is real and what is not real. And I'd like to start off by saying a little bit about the Anattalakkhana Sutta, which is the discourse on not self, teaching on not self that the Buddha gave very early on in his ministry. And he was pointing to ways of investigating reality, applying our understanding, applying our wisdom to the experiences that we have. And he was asking the monks, actually the first 5 companions that he had been practicing with for many years, doing ascetic practices with, and he changed his way of practice and parted from them, but he came and found them after he became the Buddha, after he became fully enlightened, and he wanted to help them to also understand how to free themselves from all suffering. And he gave this teaching, and it really was the prompt, it really was the way in which they were able to break through and realize full liberation. And so it's a really powerful teaching, and it's really relevant for us to really study and to put into practice. And so he said to his companions, can you tell me, is there anything in your experience that is permanent? Is there anything you can find inside or outside in the world around you or within that is permanent, that is lasting? Or do we find that actually, things are constantly changing. There's nothing solid, there's nothing lasting, there's nothing, even the most permanent looking objects or even mind states, actually we can notice over time they shift and change. And even if we can't see that, say, look at a mountain. I'm living here in Canmore in Canada, in the Rockies, Canadian Rockies, and we're surrounded in this little town by huge snow-capped peaks. They sort of tower over the town. They seem omnipresent. There's almost something godlike about them. They're very awe-inspiring. And they certainly look pretty solid, to us little human beings, to the perception of a short-lived human being. These mountains are very lasting, seem very permanent, but of course they're not. One can watch the snow coming and going and know, we know, we have the knowledge that these things, even mountains, are in geological time are like waves almost. They rise and they pass. Quite remarkable. Much longer periods of time than our lifespan, of course, but even the mountains are not permanent. And in fact, if we look a bit deeper, we can see that they're changing very much more rapidly than that. So, you know, the Buddha really invited this investigation. So can you see, can you perceive, can you recognize that things are changing? There's a constant flow to all of what we experience. Things are impermanent. All dhammas are impermanent. In this case, dhamma meaning thing. All objects, all experiences also are impermanent. And the monks, you know, who were with him put their minds to this kind of investigation and responded to him, well, actually, yes, all things appear to be impermanent. There doesn't appear to be anything that lasts. And then the Buddha said, well, this state of affairs, is this a happy state of affairs, or is it unsatisfactory for us? Is it a source of suffering? And you know, we can question, we can ask ourselves, you know, is the fact that this body is impermanent, this life is impermanent, this health is impermanent, this youth is impermanent, is that a source of joy and happiness, or is that a source of disappointment and suffering? And looking at the people around us, the fact that they also are impermanent, that they're changing and they're aging and passing away from us, we're losing. We end up really losing all the loved ones, either because they die before we do, or we die ourselves. We have to let go of all the cherished friends and family members because they're impermanent, because of mortality. Is that a happy, joyful cause for celebration, or is that a difficulty for us? Is it painful for us? And we can reflect on the objects around us also, the possessions we might have, the things that we cherish and appreciate around us. Are they lasting? Are our cherished possessions really reliable for us? You know, do they last? And we can notice that, well, actually, yeah, they, you know, things do have a lifespan. Almost everything in this material world we can see, well, yeah, it's great for a while, and then it will tend to break down, it will tend to decay in one way or another. Yeah, and then, you know, or it'll break, it'll pass on. We'll have to chuck it away at some point, have to let go of it. And if some of our possessions are very lasting, in our houses we have all sorts of things, don't we? Books and paintings and all the decorations and all the wonderful cherished items that make us feel at home. You know, it's a pleasant thing to have a space that we can call our own. To some extent it's pleasant, but then, you know, what happens is, of course, things change. And even if we don't lose those things, even if the books and the pictures and the chairs and the furniture and all, you know, outlive us, we have to part from them when we come to the end of our lives. So, you know, is that a source of joy for us? Is that something good, or is that something that we find challenging? And so we can reflect and really investigate, you know, is this true? Is it true that all things are changing? Is there anything I can find that's not changing, that's permanent? Investigating this, and then also investigating, well, is it a happy state of affairs? To see how fleeting things are, all experiences, as well as material possessions and people. All things are so fleeting, so temporary. Is that a source of happiness or suffering? Anyway, the monks, when the Buddha gave them this teaching, they reflected on his question and came back and said, well, actually, yeah, this is a source of suffering. We can see that all things are impermanent. And yeah, this is dukkha. This is not ideal. It's not quite what we would want. Yeah, it's challenging. It's stressful. It's unsatisfactory. And then the Buddha said, so if that is the case, considering this nature of reality, that there is change, anicca, there's nothing permanent to be found here, and dukkha, there is imperfection in this experience of being a human being, a mortal being, surrounded by other mortal beings, on a constantly changing, in a constantly changing space. If that is the case, we can see impermanence, we can see suffering. Then how, the Buddha said, how is it possible for us to be able to call anything, relate to anything around us or within us as mine, as myself, as me? And this is a really powerful consideration for us. The Buddha again and again pointed to this aspect of reality, which is anatta, non-self, not self, the impossibility of making life personal, really, when we look at reality clearly. So, what do I think of as me and mine? And no doubt the monks were considering this, contemplating this teaching. Okay, it's all changing. Yes, that is true. There's the unsatisfactoriness of that. And then within that, do I have much control? Do I have much agency? Is there anything I can own and possess, really? No. And to come to the heart of the matter is to look at this body, to look at these feelings, to look at these perceptions that we have, the ways that we understand the world, name and label things in the world, to look at our memories and thoughts and views and opinions and our knowledge of things, and to look at consciousness itself. This sense of me is very strong, can be very strong in all of these aspects, all of these ways, these khandhas, these heaps of experience. I feel like it's my body because I'm in here somewhere. I'm inhabiting this, these are my feelings. They're very acute. They're very personal. Other people don't feel what I feel. These are very much mine. These perceptions and thoughts, well, I wouldn't be thinking this way if it wasn't right and true. This is how it is. This is mine. This is my understanding. And the consciousness itself, that's behind all of the mental phenomena, the ability to perceive, to think, to know, that which lies behind all of that, consciousness itself, surely this is mine. It's here. But actually, as we know, when we have this wonderful opportunity to begin to practice meditation, practice mindfulness, and really look, really see, really feel what's going on within this mind and body, we can see that actually, these things can all be kind of divided and dissected, and we can see that the ownership, the sense of ownership of body or thoughts or feelings is actually a kind of construct. It's a kind of layer that we put on top of our experience. Consciousness itself has a tendency to knit together all the experiences and to create this sense of self, but it can be seen through, it can be seen as a construct. It's a fabrication, it's something that's created by the mind through ignorance, through not seeing clearly. And so this is a very profound investigation. And it's not a quick and easy, you don't just glimpse, have a quick look around and see how we're constructing a sense of self and then just let that be demolished. And from now on, recognize there's really no solid, lasting self here. There's really nothing one can own. There's no one and there's no owning. We don't get that straight away. It's not something we can, by and large, immediately understand. But through practice and through following the Eightfold Path, through meditation, through developing virtue, to steady ourselves and give ourselves some peace so we can then practice meditation, through developing, cultivating wisdom in our practice over weeks, months, years, we can start to kind of whittle away at this rather stubborn, rather persistent perception, delusion of selfhood. And it's a great thing to do, because it's a great thing to be able to investigate this, because it carries along with it the taste of freedom, because it's true. The truth gives us a sense of happiness and freedom, well-being, lightness and peace, because we're resting in what's real. And so to be able to begin to notice and give credence to, or give some of our energy to recognizing these three characteristics of reality, it's a very joyful process to know that there's constant change, and I can observe that. I can go with the flow of that. I can allow that reality to permeate the mind, to really inform me, And when I do that, I can recognize that it's foolishness. It's utter foolishness to try to perceive permanence where there's no permanence to be found. So much better to notice the flow, notice the change, and be have the attitude of accepting that. Immediately we start to free ourselves up, like water, flowing water. We can allow the current to take us along and not try to fight it, not try to make water into something concrete when all it does is flow. That's its nature. So, also recognizing dukkha, funnily enough, it's a kind of relief, isn't it? To acknowledge, to accept, to appreciate that actually, life is really not ideal. I mean, it can be good for moments, it can be good for days, even long periods of time. When we're healthy and happy and life's going well, and we're young, perhaps with lots of energy. I mean, there's an awful lot to enjoy there. But, it changes, and to really recognize that life has its challenges, and we all have to face up to it. If there's birth, there's also death. If we actually open our hearts to that, if we actually acknowledge that and accept and even embrace that reality of dukkha, then we can start to feel a little bit of well-being because we're dwelling in the real. We're awake to what's true. And dukkha does not have to mean that we suffer, funnily enough, isn't it? The reality of suffering, the reality of the challenges of life, old age, sickness, death, loss, not getting what we want, getting what we don't want, attachments to all the experiences that we have. These things potentially can create enormous suffering, but they don't have to. They don't have to. If we can open fully to the way things are, then there doesn't have to be any suffering, and there doesn't have to be any attachment. It's a sort of hands-off, willingness to identify more and more with chitta, with that which knows, and not so much with the experience. As much as we identify with our experience and kind of immerse ourselves in our experience, we'll experience suffering. because we'll notice things changing, we'll notice the kind of vicissitudes of life will swamp us and overwhelm us. But if we're ready, we're prepared, if you like, we're dwelling in the real, then one can observe reality and learn from everything that we experience. And even the challenges, when they come along, there can be a sense of almost like rolling up our sleeves. Right, yes, I'm ready to really look at this, to really experience this fully, not to turn away, to be present for this and let it inform me. And we can watch the wisdom grow and watch compassion grow, and there's great delight in that. So we can choose, we have an option. The non-suffering option is available to us, even within the imperfection of life. And if we can open our hearts to anatta, to the reality that there is nobody here to have anything, own anything, control anything. No, there's actually, when I'm really awake to experience and I'm practicing mindfulness, I can appreciate that everything I find the mind wanting to latch onto and make me and make mine, actually, no, it's arising and passing. It's not possible to really believe anymore that I can make this mine, or that I can call this myself, me. And again, a relief, again, a taste of freedom, a certain joy, because we're coming home to what's real. These three characteristics are very good to contemplate, very good to consider, and allow them to help us to kind of, take off the rose-tinted spectacles and put on the really good 2020 lenses for clear vision. These are like lenses. These three characteristics are like it's like, this is how to see reality. We can recognize that this is true. It's one of the laws of nature, if you like. Anicca, impermanence. Dukkha, imperfection. Anatta, impersonality, impersonal nature of all experience. And the Buddha also taught, another way of looking at this, which is what he called the vipallasa, the distortions of view. So we can consider the other side, the ways in which we tend to see things when the mind is clouded with ignorance, with desire and with aversion. It's not to flagellate ourselves because of this, not to make ourselves bad because we see things in wrong ways, but rather just to wake up to that tendency to actually see life experience in the opposite way, exactly the opposite way to the three characteristics. So there are actually four vipallasa that the Buddha taught and pointed out. Look at this, look at how we see things. Are we right or are we wrong? And so the reality of anicca, of impermanence, well, the vipallasa, the distortion of view that we generally struggle with, is seeing permanence where there is no permanence. And we can just notice that, like the way we view our bodies, often we really do feel that there's something lasting here. And I found myself when I was younger, I had no real, I couldn't really believe that I was going to die. I couldn't really believe it. I couldn't even really believe that I was going to get old. It's very compelling, isn't it, when we're young and healthy, to want to be very, to almost need to see this as a perpetual state, because the mind just doesn't want to go into the ending of that. into, look at those old people. I can't imagine I'll ever be one of those. And death is something which is the mind will shy away from quite naturally. We don't really want to go there. And I remember when I was living in a monastery where we had school visits, we'd have lots of students coming along and young ones also from high school and I don't know what we call it, middle school, junior school, and even very young ones, yeah. And they'd come along and we'd take them into the chapel of rest and we'd show them the skeleton that we had hanging up in there and just touch on, the reality that people sometimes, their bodies after death will come in here and we contemplate death and we look at the skeleton and we contemplate, what will happen to this body, say 50 years time or 70 years time, or even for some of us 30 years time. And it was very noticeable that young people would simply switch off. They just shy away from that, or they'd find some way to distract themselves very, very often. And I realized that's so natural. It's like for younger people to turn the mind and contemplate death. It so goes against the grain. All the youthful energy and vitality just kind of switch into a different channel. Whereas older people, once we've lost some relatives or friends and we've had perhaps some experiences of illness or just noticing the body becoming less elastic, more stiff, more challenged physically, we can then begin to consider the possibility that it may not be continuing in even the same way. It's going to probably deteriorate further and end in death. So, it's very good to contemplate death and to observe how we tend to not want to go there. But when we do, we can also observe how it's a relief. It's a relief to go there. It's calming. It's peaceful. And I think, again, because it's real, then there's something so restful about reality. It's a real taste of freedom to go there and to experience that peace and the ability to start to really let go of our perception of permanence. This vipallasa, this delusion, is so compelling for us. And we can notice with, all the things around us, how we tend to relate to them as though they are going to be there forever. And it's really helpful to just keep reminding ourselves, because of this tendency to distort the view and see permanence where there's no permanence, it's good to remind ourselves, this will break too, this will end too, I'll lose this as well, one way or another. In my case, often because I actually literally lose things absent-mindedly, or at some point it will fall apart. It's going to go. It's on the way out. All the things around us are on the way out, just as we are moving in that direction inexorably. We're all on, the exit is beckoning, really. And so just to see this, just to notice, yes, we have the tendency to look at reality in the opposite way to the way it actually is, to see the permanent in the impermanent. And can we just contemplate that? Can we notice that? Can we give ourselves a chance to turn the view, and get some more clarity and see things in a more realistic way? And when we do, we benefit from that. Our practice can really go very smoothly and very swiftly because we're watching the flow rather than, sitting on the banks of the river. We're actually willing to follow the stream, follow it, let it take us to freedom, to nirvana, to the ocean of Dhamma, So there's another two vipallasa, distortions of view that relate to the reality of dukkha, of imperfection, of unsatisfactoriness. Again, the truth that's free is to know this, to know dukkha, to really understand dukkha, first noble truth. The more we can approach dukkha, open to dukkha, face up, the more we can relax and be at ease in this world and free our hearts from suffering. So the vipallasa, the distortions of view, are the tendency we have to see beauty in the unbeautiful and to see pleasure in what is painful or happiness in what is a source of suffering. And that can sound really negative. You say it, I'm aware that, it can sound like a bit of a sort of killjoy approach to life. So all that is beautiful is actually really ugly, and all that is pleasant and happy is actually a source of suffering. But again, the Buddha didn't mince words. He was trying to give us what we want, rather give us what's a benefit to us. And if we're not seeing clearly, then it's so good to have the opportunity to be put straight. And so we can see, contemplate, we can consider, all that we find beautiful. In what we find beautiful, we can see that there is the changing nature, which tends to lead us from a perception of beauty to a perception of the unbeautiful. The body that decays and dies, or rather dies and then decays. The beauty in nature, well, also everything in nature has a life, and then it passes away and it decays, it rots, it decomposes, and not so beautiful. Objects that come to the end of their span, their life will be broken, will be discarded, will be unwanted. And just to reflect on this, to reflect on the transient nature of beauty, is to be able to appreciate it all the more, appreciate what's beautiful in this moment, knowing that it doesn't last. It gives us more of an opportunity to see with clarity both the beauty and the unbeautiful, and to see that within beauty there is the unbeautiful, And in a way, within the unbeautiful, there's also beauty. Some people like to contemplate dead things, decaying things. And when one gives attention to something that's rotting, decaying, fading, wilting, dying, there's a kind of beauty to that. So, to be able to, in a way, see the bigger picture, and to question these perceptions of beauty and unbeauty. It's very helpful, very helpful. And also pleasant, in the pleasant, in the pleasure, in the joy, in the joys in life, the pleasant peak experiences in life, of course, contain the seed of suffering, the unpleasant, and the sorrow, grief, lamentation, pain, and despair. Why? Because they change. They inevitably change. So every peak has a trough. Every high has a low. And when we start to open to that, open to the fullness of experience, we can let go of the grasping that naturally arises towards the pleasant, wanting to keep it, wanting to preserve it, wanting it to be permanent. Well, it isn't. But when we allow it to be what it is, which is flowing and changing and ceasing at some point, then we can, really actually start to live in a more complete and full way, develop wisdom, rest in that, take our joy from that, take our joy from the path, take our joy from understanding the way things are. And all of these reflections, really, all of these distortions of view, are encouraging us to hold on to a sense of self, hold on to a sense of permanence, and to grasp and to desire things to be a certain way, to argue with reality, to fight the way things are. It's like kind of struggling upstream against the current, in a canoe, say, rowing like crazy. And we just about managed to stay in the same place, rowing against the current. This is the Vipassana. This is the distortions of view. What a relief to wise up to the Buddha's teachings, turn the boat around. You don't even have to row then. You just sit in the boat and be taken along the stream, along with the current of Dharma, the current of reality. So recognizing the unbeautiful, recognizing the transient nature of beauty, and therefore the unbeautiful in that, recognizing the transience of peak moments of joy and happiness in worldly life, is to be able to, to really enjoy the moments of pleasure, knowing disappeared for a moment there. I fear that the internet connection may not be great. So I shall speak a bit more slowly and hope that most of what I say will actually be coming across to you. So, the roller coaster of life. Life is a roller coaster. Life is, constant interchange between the ups and the downs, one way or another. When we can start to accept that, not hold on to the ups and not push away the downs, then we start to really develop this beautiful quality of equanimity, where we can roll with the punches. We can enjoy, kiss the joy as it flies. We can enjoy, and we can also allow the unpleasant to be present and not make a problem out of it. And in this way, we can really watch the nature of things, the way things are, and learn from every experience. The final Vipassana, the final distorted view, of course, relates to anatta, the reality of not self. The fact is, we tend to create this sense of self constantly, a sense of ownership, control, and especially a sense of me. Somebody's here. It's natural we do that, because we wouldn't be here if we hadn't got this tendency to ignorance. But we have great opportunity, a really great opportunity to shatter the ignorance, to see through, with the guidance of the Buddha, to see through the sense of self, to see where it begins and see where it ends. And to me, this is the most exciting, actually, the most incredible investigation that we can make, is to investigate the sense of self and to allow, through our willingness to look at it, allow it to dissolve gradually. It's bound to dissolve gradually because it's not real. It's a construct, and like all constructs, it has a life. It has a beginning. It has a middle. It has an existence for a while, and then it comes to an end. It cannot sustain itself. It is delusion. And to begin to chip away at that, as I said, it's a process really for most of us. It takes time, takes application, but to bring in these contemplations. So noting that We're programmed, we're conditioned to see self where there's no self, to see permanence where there's constant change, to see beauty where there's not really lasting beauty, and to see happiness where there is actually the unsatisfactory nature of things. And it's a real wising up, it's a real maturing to see these distortions of you and to recognize the three characteristics can be applied. This understanding of anicca, anatta, dukkha can be applied to all our experience. And when we do apply it, when we're looking to see the change, see the suffering, and see the impersonal nature of experience, then we're really on track, And we can apply it to our meditation practice, apply it to what we experience when we're sitting, but also bring it in and apply it to our everyday life experience. This body, all its postures, all its activities, wherever we are, it's very helpful to keep our mindfulness going, not just on the mat or sitting in the meditation chair, but also in everyday life to keep the mindfulness sharp and bright. Bring in these contemplations, bring in the three characteristics, notice how they are true always. See if they're not true. See if we can find any flaw in this picture of reality that the Buddha's given us. Is it really true? Does it apply to me? So investigate. As the Buddha said, don't take any teaching that I give you as a belief system. Don't just believe it because I'm telling you. No. To really understand the Buddha's teachings, we have to put them into practice and apply them and really investigate and have a skeptical mind, Try and pull them apart, try and find the flaw in the Dharma teachings. Because actually doing this, actually investigating in this way, it helps us to go deeper and deeper into the Dharma, dive deeper into the Dharma. It really does, because we're all the resistance to what's true, all the delusion, all the ignorance begins to be elucidated, enlightened, when we investigate in this thorough way. So find fault with the Buddha's teachings, question them, challenge them, and then see where that takes us. So I think I've said enough. I apologise if the words are not all coming through. Apologise for our slightly dodgy internet connection here today. So if anyone has any questions, reflections, please feel free to put them in the chat. And I'm just having a look to see if there are any questions here. Oh, it's lovely to see people tuning in from all over the world. Welcome to all, and wonderful to be able to connect in this way. Friends in Canada, Thailand, Cambodia, marvellous. I'm not seeing any questions except one person who's asking about my name. Brahmavara is a Pali name, like all the monks have Pali names to inspire us, to give us a sense of inspiration and kind of uplift. And Brahma actually means, questions about Brahma, it means God, yes, it's the creator aspect of God. There's Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. They don't come into Buddhist cosmology, Vishnu and Shiva, as far as I know. I could be wrong about that, but certainly we hear about Brahmas rather, the gods, and Brahma is the creator aspect of God, the gods, and Vara means excellent. So it's a very uplifting name. And my teacher, who gave me this name, Ajahn Sumedho, Luang Por Sumedho, said this: the meaning of this for you is consider we are the creators of our karma, of our world. Make it good, make it excellent. So create the good. And we can all take this as a teaching. We have responsibility. We can't change past karma. So, what comes to us through the six sense doors, i.e., hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking. What comes to us is due to past causes, past karma. We don't have agency over that. It's cause and effect. This is the effect part. We certainly have a great deal of agency in the present time, present experience. We can choose, as I've been saying, really, we can choose whether we respond skillfully or unskillfully to our experience in this moment. We can choose whether to suffer or not. It may be suffering comes our way in terms of physical pain, losses, being thwarted in one way or another, not getting what we want. But we have a choice whether we rail against that, struggle with that reality, or whether we accept the way things are and make peace with that. When we are able to accept the way things are and make peace with our experience right now, then we're kind of ending. We're allowing unwholesome karma to cease, to come to an end. We're not creating new unwholesome karma through reactivity. This is incredible. So we have this agency. We're like gods in this respect. We can create our world in terms of how we relate to the way things are, our attitude to our experience. And we can really turn things around. When there's difficulties, we can choose not to react negatively. And I'm not saying that we may have negative thoughts, and impulses, but we don't have to act on them. If we can allow ourselves to face up to the unpleasant, the painful, and just allow it to arise and pass away, we can make peace with unwholesome past karmas arising, with painful experiences. And if experience is really pleasant in the moment, we can also be very careful, very mindful, not to grab onto it, not to allow desire to come up in the mind, because that also is unwholesome for the future. If we do that, we can allow that wholesome karma, pleasant result to have its life, to arise and to pass away, without clinging to it, without craving for it. And in this way also, we can see karma ceasing, we're coming out of the wheel of samsara, we're freeing up and letting go of karma, past karma. So, we have tremendous agency. We really are creators of our own present and also future karma or non-karma. We have agency over this, and it's an incredible gift, and it's an incredible responsibility in a way. We have the option of liberation in every moment, of not holding on and not creating more karma. And in this way, we're all gods. This is my reflection, and we can make it good. We can choose to develop wisdom, develop equanimity, and not to give way to reactivity, and not to immerse ourselves in the wheel of samsara, not to be tied down by our responses to pleasant and unpleasant experience, but just seeing experience as it is. This is pleasant, unpleasant. Before we start desiring or hating experience, we can notice the tendency to do that and let it go. Let it go. And just be present to what is. So this is how I understand this name that I have. And it's therefore, in that way, it's a source of inspiration and encouragement on the path. I'll just see if there are any more questions, comments. I'm not seeing anything at the moment. So I think it will be very fine to either say bye-bye, anyone who wants to or needs to leave at this point. Otherwise, I'm going to sit and meditate and just encourage you to do the same if you have time, just to quietly end the session with some meditation, so we can just allow what we've heard to settle in, permeate through, or just let it go, whatever needs to happen. So let's sit together for a few minutes. I'll ring the gong at 9 o'clock Eastern time, whatever time it is for you. I'll ring the gong in about 7 minutes or so.